Good morning, Acadiana, and thanks for tuning in to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate, our source of local journalism here in the Lafayette, Louisiana area, in the Acadiana area, and of course they're covering the news all over the state too, so we get some state news. We're glad to bring you this public service every Monday through Friday, reading you the written news so that it was available to our vision impaired audience as well as anybody who just doesn't have time to read it. We could not do this without the generous volunteer efforts of our news readers. Today we are joined by a volunteer that I happen to know well because I work with him at AOC. From time to time the AOC staff takes over the reading responsibilities of the news because we volunteer to read the news as well from time to time. And we are joined by William McFarland this morning. Good morning, William.
Good morning, Matt.
Are you all, William is playing double duty. He's the reader, but he's also making sure we are routed out to TV this morning through our various interweb tubes and whatnot. Are you all good on the TV front?
We are good to go.
Cool, man. Well, then I'm going to mute my mic and get out of the way and go listen on Cypress Street with the rest of the audience. Thanks, Will.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to jump right into our first story of the day. Lafayette Parish pays $1.3 million for others to run 3 parks by Claire Taylor, staff writer. The Lafayette Parish Council is giving $1.3 million to 3 entities to take over maintenance and operation of parks in Carencro, Dusant, and Judice. The ultimate goal is to eliminate the need to pay for parish parks, leaving only parks and recreation facilities in Lafayette, which has its own tax to generate revenue. The parish does not have a dedicated fund source for parks and recreation. At budget hearings this summer, the city and parish councils butted heads over the fact that although the parish pays little towards parks and recreation, with Lafayette supplementing the parish council has a vote in running the department and its budget. The goal of the parish council, Chairman Kevin Nauka said Tuesday, is for Lafayette to take full control of its parks and recreation operations. At its meeting Tuesday, the parish council authorized the mayor-president to enter into agreements with Carencro to take over operation, maintenance, and capital improvements to Carencro Park for a one-time payment of $608,877, and for Dusant to take over operation, maintenance, and capital improvements of Dusant Park for a one-time payment of $110,602. The council also agreed to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with Southwest Athletics to take over operation, maintenance, and capital improvements of Judice Parks for a one-time payment of $600,412. The money, Nauka said, is coming from the rededication of parish library tax surplus and the cultural economy tax. Action on a fourth agreement between the parish and Scott to take over Scott Park was deferred Tuesday. The parish would give Scott $642,009 under the agreement. Broussard and Youngsville previously agreed to take over operation and maintenance of parish parks in their areas, but were not paid to do so. Parish Councilman Josh Carlson said the entities being paid are being asked to keep recreation leagues operating, while Broussard and Youngsville parks do not have leagues. The idea, Nauka said, was to give authority to towns to maintain parks that they or athletic associations already are maintaining because the parish has no money to do so. The money is a one-time allotment to help get the process started by paying lights, trash collection, and maintenance for 2 years, he said. Election 2020. U.S. House 3 vie to upset Higgins and run for Congress. By Will Centel, staff writer. Republican U.S. Rep. Clay Higgins of Lafayette, who is often embroiled in controversy, is running for his 3rd term in Congress against 2 Democrats and a Libertarian. The challengers on the November 3rd ballot are Democrat Rob Anderson of Sulphur, Democrat Braylon Harris of Lake Charles, and Libertarian Brandon LeLue, also of Lake Charles. Higgins, 59, fended off 3 challengers in 2018 by capturing 55% of the vote on his way to a 2nd term, and he is favored to win again. The district stretches across southwest Louisiana, including Lafayette and Lake Charles. Higgins arrived on the political scene in 2016 when he upset fellow Republican Scott Angel, who almost made the 2015 governor's race runoff for the congressional post. A former law enforcement officer, he had won attention for his tough talk on a local television program called Crime Stoppers. Since then, he has made news for his blunt statements, including a social media post earlier this year when he said social justice protesters in Louisiana should be met with deadly force. Higgins was also a prominent critic of Governor John Bel Edwards' stay-at-home orders in the early stages of the coronavirus pandemic, arguing that government oppressors were making life needlessly difficult for businesses. Neither the congressman nor his campaign office returned requests for comment. Higgins' website says he believes both the U.S. immigration system and tax codes are broken. He said he backs programs that build community support for law enforcement and has backed legislation that would defund Planned Parenthood, the nation's leading abortion provider. Higgins has raised $720,494 in his bid for a third term, according to his campaign finance report for the period that ended September 30th. The congressman reported he has spent $517,356 and has $243,826 on hand. Anderson, 51, ran for the same post 2 years ago and captured just 5% of the vote as sort of a protest candidacy. Can't a regular guy run for Congress anymore and better yet win? He asked. Anders said this time, if he wins the job, his key priorities would be healthcare, education, and infrastructure. He said the nation needs to work towards a system where, quote, where every person is covered by healthcare, end quote. Ultimately, the goal is universal coverage, Anderson said. Anderson has been a home builder and ran an online magazine. He said his campaign has made allowances for the coronavirus pandemic and back-to-back hurricanes in southwest Louisiana. Anderson said he has stood in front of a supermarket handing out face masks. His campaign has made donations of food, water, and batteries to Lake Charles area shelters after Hurricane Laura and Delta pummeled the region. Anderson said Higgins lacks the skills to represent voters. Quote, personally, I think he is a marketing tool sent by the RNC to posture and pose and pretend to be the face of law and order, where his resume and track record do not reflect that, end quote, referring to the Republican National Committee. Anderson's campaign had raised $63,616 as of March 31st. The latest financial report available, he had spent just $48,015 and had $2,695 on hand. Harris, 35, is the pastor of Mount Olive Baptist Church in Lake Charles and is the director of a program in the Calcasieu Parish District Attorney's Office that mentors youth. He lost his home when Laura struck on August 27th and is temporarily living in Iowa, just east of Lake Charles. We've taken a beating, Harris said. The Democrat said his campaign is called the People Priorities Tour, where he touts education, healthcare, and the rebuilding of southwest Louisiana after the hurricanes. Harris said his main reason for running is because the tenor of Washington is definitely not conducive to the forming of a perfect union. He said Higgins is unable to promote that theme due to his lack of decency and decorum. Harris has raised $16,340, according to his September 30 finance report. He has spent $7,484 and had $8,755 on hand. LUS, a restaurant manager, said one of his themes is allowing people to live as they please. Our government continually invades our lives and attempts to do this on a daily basis, he said on his website. LUS said a free market is the key to a free society. The right to self-defense carries the highest value, and the public school curriculum should be decided by local officials. LUS did not return multiple messages for comment. Excuse me. LSU self-imposes football penalties, bans Beckham, by Wilson Alexander and Brooks Cabina, staff writers. LSU has self-imposed penalties on its football team for rules violations in the hopes its actions will satisfy the NCAA enforcement. The school will cut 8 scholarships over the next 2 years, reduce recruiting visits, and ban Odell Beckham Jr. from its facility for 2 years after the former LSU wide receiver handed out $2,000 in cash on the field after the 2020 College Football Playoff National Championship. The news was first reported Wednesday by Sports Illustrated. News of the self-imposed penalties comes almost a month after a series of LSU infraction cases were taken up by an independent enforcement panel, which will ultimately decide what final sanctions will be levied in an investigation that has stretched over 2 years. A postseason ban was part of the conversation between the NCAA and LSU, a source confirmed with the Advocate, but the university moved away from such a severe penalty. When reached for comment Wednesday, LSU officials sent a written statement. LSU has worked proactively and in cooperation with the NCAA to identify and self-report any violations that occurred within our football program. LSU's Senior Associate Athletic Director Robert Munson said, "We believe these self-imposed penalties are appropriate and we will continue to coordinate and cooperate with the NCAA on this matter." The NCAA has investigated LSU's football program for three separate potential rules violations, while its enforcement staff looks into claims of impermissible payments given to recruits by men's basketball coach Will Wade, an ongoing investigation that entered the independent accountability resolution process in late September. No notice of allegations has been sent to LSU. LSU didn't object to its basketball case being referred to the independent accountability resolution process as long as the NCAA investigation into the football program weren't lumped into the same case. LSU believed its football cases were closer to resolution, and if combined with basketball, the process could take an unnecessarily longer period of time to conclude. According to documents obtained by the Advocate through a public records request, the NCAA enforcement staff confirmed John Paul Foon's former chief fundraiser for Our Lady of the Lake Regional Medical Center, arranged employment beginning in 2012 for the parents of former offensive lineman Vadal Alexander, and paid his father $180,000 between 2012 and 2017 for a no-show job. LSU's attorney wrote in a response letter that the Franciscan Missionaries of Our Lady of Health System met with LSU counsel on November 6, 2018, and that it was LSU's first notice of the potential violation. Former university president F. King Alexander and former athletic director Joe Oliva notified the NCAA that same day and proceeded with investigations. The NCAA also looked into when Beckham was recorded on video handing out money to LSU players after the national championship game, January 13th. LSU worked quickly to recover the money, according to NCAA documents, and helped investigate. LSU submitted its summary of violations June 1st and said Beckham provided 4 football players with a total of $2,000 in cash, which NCAA documents said LSU believed to be a Level 3 violation. The NCAA also investigated a potential recruiting violation in January of 2019 involving coach Ed Orgeron. According to NCAA documents, LSU's attorney wrote Orgeron was interviewed by the university outside counsel and compliance staff. He admitted to inadvertent but impermissible contact with the prospects, documents said. The compliance staff reported that violation to the NCAA on July 31st, 2019. LSU's self-imposed penalties, which included 30 days off the road during the next recruiting period for Oregon, plus a reduction in the total number of permissible off-campus contacts with the involved prospect. According to the documents, LSU disagreed with its football cases needed to be resolved in the independent accountability resolution process. The school argued they were similar to countless cases with other schools that, in previous years, were resolved by the NCAA's enforcement staff and the Division Committee on Infractions. And the Division I Committee on Infractions. Pertaining to the Funes case, LSU noted that F. King Alexander, Oliva, and former LSU football coach Les Miles are no longer on staff, and that no player on the current football roster ever competed with the player whose father was paid. At the time, LSU's attorneys wrote that because the school and the NCAA enforcement staff agree that the football investigation is complete, The football investigation should not be combined with the basketball investigation within a possible independent review that could take 6 to 12 months to conclude. The basketball investigation has become strung out, on an NCAA official wrote in a July 15th letter, because of Wade's repetitive refusal to cooperate with the investigation and LSU's inability to secure his cooperation. His tactics during the investigation have delayed resolutions dramatically, wrote Jonathan Duncan, the NCAA's vice president of enforcement. Wade missed several deadlines to supply his records, according to Duncan's letter. LSU wrote in response that it should not lose the guidance of the COI process and precedent in the football inquiry simply because the enforcement staff believes Wade had been delinquent in providing telephone records to the staff. Hurricane Laura. How can a community exist with no church? Lake Charles area Catholics await diocesan decision on rebuilding destroyed structures, by Ken Stickney, staff writer. The Catholic Diocese of Lake Charles will survey its flock at masses this weekend, part of the process of determining which of its churches flattened by recent hurricanes will be rebuilt. We've had meetings and listening sessions to understand what is happening on the coast about people moving back, said the Reverend Reuben Buller, diocesan vicar general and the man tasked with leading recovery assistance and plans. But we realized that not everyone was present, so we decided to send out the survey and we'll survey people online. Buller said determining how many diocesan Catholics have returned to the area and how many will return is no easy task, especially in vast but lightly populated Cameron Parish, where hurricanes Laura and Delta made landfall in the past 2 months. But it is a necessary one before making decisions on rebuilding, especially in Cameron. Not only were churches toppled there, but so were homes. Whether those Cameron residents and church parish members will return at all to sustain their parish remains unknown. Buller said Catholics attending Mass in the diocese this weekend will receive paper surveys. Others, those who remain outside the diocese, waiting for their homes to be rebuilt, and those who will not be at Mass because of reasons related to COVID-19, will find the survey available online. The diocese is also seeking the best addresses by which they can reach the 80,000 Catholics who live in the diocese's 5 civil parishes. Church parishes in Cameron Parish include Sacred Heart and Our Lady Star of the Sea in Cameron, St. Eugene and Grand Chenier, St. Mary of the Lake Charles, Our Lady of the Assumption, Johnson Bayou, and St. Peter the Apostle, Hackberry. The later two, located west of Calcasieu Lake, sustained less damage than those east of the lake, where some churches appear to be beyond repair. All of those parishes will have to be addressed, Buller said. We haven't made any decisions, but Catholics in Cameron may be suffering from some anxiety over the fate of their local churches. In a widely circulated recent Facebook post, Jennifer Jones, Cameron's district attorney, wrote that she was heartbroken at suggestions that the diocese would not replace the churches in eastern Cameron. She noted that 2 former churches, Immaculate Conception in Grand Chenier and St. Rose of Lima on the Front Ridge, were abandoned after Hurricane Rita in 2005. Our communities have already lost so much. Businesses, stores, even schools, she wrote. I am afraid that this will be the last straw. How can a community exist with no church? She added, it seems to me that this is all about money. What a shame. I would be very interested to know how the residents of southeastern Cameron Parish feel about this. A message to her office this week was not returned, but her posting drew what appeared to be an official response from the diocese. Vicar General Daniel Torres said of the diocesan website that the process of assessing diocesan damages, they could total $60 million and maybe much more, and sounding out the settlements of diocesan Catholics is continuing. The diocese has not made any decisions because the Catholic faithful of these parishes have been asked to send their suggestions, thoughts, and concerns to me at daniel.torres@lcdiocese.org, so I can report back to the Presbyterial Council of the diocese, which will make a recommendation to the bishop, he wrote. This gathering of information has not been completed. Buller said of the imperial churches, St. Eugene, Our Lady, Star of the Sea, and Sacred Heart had all been previously destroyed in Hurricanes Rita in 2005 and Ike in 2008. Insurance costs, he said, are prohibitive. In fact, the recent cost of the insurance for those Cameron churches were borne by the whole diocese, not just by the parishioners of the individual churches. We will have to wait and see what the insurers will say as well, he said. This is the fourth hurricane we've gone through in this area, Torres said. Insurance has gone up and the population has shifted, and we're still trying to make decisions. We are gathering information, so rumors out there about churches being closed are false. Surveys of people in Cameron Parish may yet answer important questions, such as if the diocese rebuilds the Cameron churches again, will their parishioners return to their former homes and attend those churches again? Torres said the church is trying to find a solution for the good of all the people. Edwards backs unified LSU jobs by Sam Carlin, staff writer. A day before an LSU search committee was set up to take up whether to split up the top posts of the university into two jobs, a president and a chancellor, Governor John Bel Edwards on Wednesday said he prefers a single leader for the flagship university system. And Commissioner of Administration Jay Dardeen, who had expressed interest in taking over as head of the system, said he is no longer planning to apply because it appears the university will not hire two candidates and is staying with the combined president-chancellor. Dardeen, a Republican who crossed party lines to endorse Edwards in the 2015 election after losing in the primary, hadn't formally thrown his hat in the ring. In an interview, Dardeen said he was interested in becoming president of the system, a job he envisioned as having a modest staff and a focus on fundraising, external relations, and coordinating the finances of the entire system. Now that the board appears poised to keep the position as a combined president-chancellor, Dardeen said he doesn't intend to apply. My interest early on was based upon the belief that the board felt returning to two jobs was the way to go, Dardeen said. I think that mindset has changed. I think the search committee is going to be charged with looking for somebody who's going to be president and CEO of the main campus. This is not what I contemplated would happen. Edwards, speaking on his monthly call-in radio show, Ask the Governor, said it's a close call on whether to split the president-chancellor position into two jobs, and he said he won't direct the board overseeing LSU one way or another. But he said interim LSU president Tom Galligan has done both of those roles well, especially during this pandemic, and Edwards noted it would cost more money to split the jobs again, which is untenable in a pandemic that has shrunk public institutions' budgets. Edwards in January said he supported splitting the jobs into two positions, but he acknowledged Wednesday he has changed his mind. My opinion on it has changed over time, Edwards said. I think probably for the reason I just stated. The two should probably continue to be merged into one position. Galligan said last week he got the bug and will apply for the permanent position after serving since January 1st as interim. Galligan is dean of the LSU Paul M. Hebert Law Center. Governors in Louisiana appoint the members of the LSU Board of Supervisors, which hires the president-chancellor. Edwards, a Democrat in his second term, has appointed enough members, replacing appointees of former Governor Bobby Jindal, to have control over the 16-member board. LSU once had a president of the university system, which oversees colleges around the state, and a chancellor of the flagship Baton Rouge campus. The board merged them under Jindal about 8 years ago, leading to the hiring of former university president and chancellor F. King Alexander. Alexander announced in December that he was leaving LSU for the top post at Oregon State University, and LSU hasn't made any decisions on hiring a new leader. A search committee tasked with finding a new leader will hold its first meeting Thursday, more than 10 months after Alexander said he was leaving. The search committee was initially slated to deliver a recommendation for the organizational structure to the full board for an October 23rd vote, but that time frame has been pushed back. James Williams, head of the search committee, said he doesn't expect the committee will come to a formal decision on the president and chancellor position Thursday. He noted it will be the first time the search committee meets, and he said the organizational structure encompasses more than the president-chancellor position. But Williams also said everyone involved wants the committee to complete its work ASAP. The search committee will also discuss the timeline on Thursday. I don't mean a few years, Williams said. I think everyone involved in this process sees it as a process of months. What exactly that looks like, the committee will decide tomorrow. The LSU board, when controlled by Jindal, hired a private consulting firm to study whether to consolidate the president and chancellor positions, and the firm recommended the board do so. After a secretive nationwide search, the board picked Alexander to do both jobs. Jindal supported consolidation because it said it would save millions of dollars in the administration and help the various schools within the system work together. Earlier this year, the board hired the same firm, AGB Consulting, to do another study on the same topic for $71,000. This time, the firm offered up several options, but no single recommendation on what to do. In January, shortly after Galligan took over, Edwards told reporters he supports splitting up the top job into a chancellor to helm the main campus and a president to oversee the statewide nine-institution system, which includes campuses in Alexandria, Shreveport, and New Orleans. But I will tell you that enough time has elapsed and Tom Galligan has been there, and I've been able to watch him perform as president and chancellor in a very difficult COVID environment, Edwards said on his radio show. It seems like he's been able to do both of those roles well. Bill to provide oversight of police budgets heads to Senate by Mark Ballard, Capitol Bureau editor. Despite pleas from local governments that legislation forbidding reducing law enforcement budgets would quickly put them in unintended legal difficulties, a Louisiana Senate committee Wednesday advanced a defund the police bill, again on a party line vote, moving the measure within 2 steps of the governor's desk. State Rep. Lance Harris, the chief sponsor of House Bill 38, agreed to change police funding reduction levels from 10% to 25% before local government is penalized. Republican Senator Heather Cloud, who had served a dozen years as a mayor of Turkey Creek, pointed out that in small towns, money is so tight that budgets shift almost daily. A single officer resigning for a better paying job elsewhere could result in villages and towns running afoul of the law in a single afternoon. Cloud backed the legislation after Harris agreed to raise the budget trigger and said he wouldn't change the percentage. The Senate Finance Committee, voting along party lines, advanced HB 38 to the full Senate. If approved there, the House would have to approve the increase from 10% to 25% for final passage. The Louisiana Police Funding Protection Act would require parishes and municipalities to notify the Joint Legislative Committee on the Budget in writing of any reductions in law enforcement funding and to appear before the panel if requested should the funding drop by 25% or greater. If the Legislative Committee, composed of members of both the House Appropriations and Senate Finance Committees, finds that the budget cuts have a, quote, significant and harmful effect, unquote, on public safety, then the local government would lose its money for construction projects and its appropriations from sales tax deductions. The Louisiana Municipal Association pointed out that the structure set up in the legislation would wreak havoc on local government's budget. It was the first time anyone testified for or against the bill. Local governments put together their budgets under no timeline, but the bill requires reporting to the state legislature within 15 days of deciding to reduce law enforcement budgets, explained Karen White, counsel to the Louisiana Municipal Association. City council members and town aldermen could make the decision and pass the budget all in one day. Under state law, a drop of 5% in revenue requires local governments to balance their budgets through cuts in funding to services. If local governments lay off or fire police officers, government is still required by law to continue paying down the debts of the pension system, but now assuming both the former employees' contribution as well as their own. They can't defund because they can't afford to, she said. Harris, an Alexandria Republican, is running for the 5th U.S. Congressional District seat being vacated by the retirement of U.S. Rep. Ralph Aberman, Republican, Alto. BB gun measure wins final approval by Will Centel, staff writer. A bill that would change public school discipline rules statewide after a BB gun controversy in Jefferson Parish sparked national attention won final legislative approval Wednesday night. The measure, House Bill 83, cleared the House 93-0 shortly after the Senate approved it 35-0. The proposal now goes to Governor John Bel Edwards, who is expected to sign it. The legislation stems from the suspension of Kamari Harrison, 9, a 4th grader in Harvey, who was disciplined after he moved a Daisy BB gun out of the way of his younger brother while Kamari was taking an online test from his home. School officials said the presence of the gun, which was visible to the teacher, violated school rules. Kamari was initially recommended for expulsion, which was later reduced to a 6-day suspension. Critics, including his father, Nyron Harrison, complained that the punishment was grossly unfair. Both father and son appeared before the House Education Committee earlier this month, sparking a rare case of bipartisan praise and making Kamari something of a celebrity. HB 83, which is set to be named after the 4th grader, would widen the appeal rights of students and parents. It would permit students to appeal to the school board and district court suspensions in cases where the initial penalty was expulsion. The plan would also require officials in all 69 school districts to review discipline policies to account for distance learning, students taking classes from home, which has become common because of the coronavirus pandemic. I believe we have to do something for virtual learning, certain protocols, said Senator Mark Abraham, Republican Lake Charles, and Senate handler of the bill. The measure breezed through both chambers. At one point, Wes Watts, president of the Louisiana Association of School Superintendents, said he was concerned that the changes would result in countless suspensions ending up before school boards and courts. Watts is superintendent of the West Baton Rouge Parish School District. An amendment added in the Senate Education Committee made clear that the bill applies only to suspensions that were originally expulsions. A tall order. Louisiana fundraising for giraffe enclosure expansion. By Katie Gagliano, staff writer. Millie is like any newborn. She takes comfort being close to her mother. She's learning the world, and she needs frequent feedings. But she also weighed 110 pounds at birth and stands 5.5 feet tall. Louisiana welcomed Millie the giraffe on September 20th, the second calf born to parents Gabriel and Evangeline, the star giraffe couple at the zoo in Broussard. Millie stands about the length of her mother's leg, and in the months since her birth has begun spending progressively more time outside the giraffe barn as she grows more confident, said Louisiana General Manager Matt Oldenburg. The young giraffe is part of a baby boom at the zoo, which recently has seen newborn black bucks, water bucks, cranes, squirrel monkeys, and pythons. But Millie especially has captured the hearts of staff and visitors, he said. You can't get much cuter than a baby giraffe, Oldenburg said. The youngster is still figuring out the basics, like how to control her tail twitches and manage her long tongue, but she's gradually becoming more adept at navigating her surroundings. Millie is expected to nurse exclusively for the first couple of months, then gradually shift to a blended diet of grain, hay, and milk until Evangeline weans her around the 6 to 8 month mark. The young giraffe will continue to grow for several years, like her sister Josie, and is expected to fall between Evangeline's roughly 14-foot stature and Gabriel's 16-foot height. She will weigh around 1,800 pounds, Oldenburg said. It's up in the air which parent Millie may take after personality-wise. Father Gabriel is an outgoing flirt who loves to greet guests and seek attention, while Mother Evangeline is more timid and hesitant to approach visitors. Right now, the focus is on the strong relationship among Millie, Evangeline, and Josie, who's helping care for the youngster as she observes Evangeline and learns how she'll care for her own calf one day. The three female giraffes have a strong connection and a sense of comfort and safety among one another, Oldenburg said. To have a healthy, happy baby is such an incredible reward. When we saw the baby standing an hour after being born and saw how attentive and caring Evangeline was, and even how special Josie was with Millie, I mean, you can't ask for a better result than that. We're overwhelmingly proud and overwhelmingly excited, he said. The month-old giraffe's birth holds special significance for Oldenburg, who named the giraffe after the late Melinda Mangum, a beloved Lafayette High School gifted English teacher and education advocate who died in April. Oldenburg was a teenager when his family bought the zoo. In 2006, when Louisiana welcomed Gabriel, Oldenburg was in Mangum's class. The educator gave the teen a copy of a local newspaper highlighting Gabriel's addition, and he has it still, Oldenburg said. The two struck up a friendship in her classroom and remained close after graduation. Mangum was always fond of the giraffes and a supporter of Louisiana, coming to visit at least once a year, the general manager said. Mangum was delighted by the animals and the fact Gabriel's and Evangeline's names originated from Henry Wadsworth's long-followed poem, Evangeline, A Tale of Acadie. Her last message to me, which came in February, said, "Never forget, I'm the original godmother of the zoo's giraffes." I didn't know that would be her last text message to me, he said. As Millie's birth approached, Oldenburg realized the calf's birth presented the perfect opportunity to honor the beloved educator. He reached out to her daughter, Elizabeth Mangum, who gave the family's blessing for the namesake. It's a once-in-a-lifetime feeling, just incredible. Her presence was so powerful, but she was so gentle and just somebody that you want to spend as much time with as you can. She shared her wisdom to no end. It's unbelievably special to be able to do this, Oldenburg said. Now that Millie has arrived, Louisiana is advancing plans to move the giraffe enclosure to a large pasture on the north side of the park. The area is roughly 3 acres and will feature a new 60 by 60-foot barn with multiple 20-foot entry doors, a herd stall where females can nurse calves, and an individual stall to separate the males from nursing mothers, Oldenburg said. The manager estimated construction of the barn, coupled with improvements to existing fencing and utility installation, will cost $200,000. Louisiana hopes to begin construction at the beginning of 2021 with the aim of completing construction within 12 months and having the giraffes settled in the new enclosure within 18 months. The zoo has already begun moving ostriches and black bucks, a type of antelope, from the area to new enclosures to prepare the pasture. Changes to the environment will be minimal. The existing fencing will be fortified to prevent collapse if the giraffes lean their necks against them. Existing trees will have barriers placed around the roots to prevent the giraffes from trampling the trees while feeding on leaves. And an existing 2-story observatory deck will be maintained for visitors, Oldenburg said. Brainstorming for the new enclosure began in 2016 after Josie was born and ramped up when Evangeline became pregnant with Millie. The added space will allow the zoo to continue growing its giraffe population by bringing in an unrelated male giraffe as a potential future mate for Josie or Millie, Oldenburg said. Reticulated giraffes are endangered internationally from habitat loss and hunting, and Louisiana wants the opportunity to support their preservation while ensuring their giraffe family has the best living conditions possible, he said. You don't want anybody to be cramped or uncomfortable. We're not close to that point right now, but you want everybody to have their own space to roam, to eat, to go inside, to do whatever it is they want to do at whatever level of comfort they want it, Oldenburg said. The zoo has launched a fundraiser in conjunction with Millie's birth to rally public support for the expansion of the Giraffe Center. A donation link and information about Louisiana giraffes are available at louisiana.com/giraffes. Facebook concert to aid area musicians. Fundraiser to help those affected by storm's pandemic by Ken Stickney, staff writer. A host of Louisiana artists will offer a Facebook-based fundraising concert Saturday night to aid their fellow musicians from Lake Charles. Cajun and Zydeco musicians and Acadian author Zachary Richard organized the fundraiser for the Lake Charles Music Relief Fund, which was created after Hurricane Laura's widespread destruction in Calcasieu, Cameron, and other nearby parishes. Among those severely affected were working musicians in Southwest Louisiana, Richard said, and the fundraiser will benefit them. 68 musicians have sought aid from the benefit through this week, seeking help with damages from the storm. The concert will be presented starting at 7 p.m. Saturday with streaming on facebook.com/Zachary Richard Official. Donations can be made through GoFundMe at bit.ly/3MAF2SI or PayPal at bit.ly/35IZNZC. Everyone was suffering from the COVID-19. And now the hurricanes, Richard said, explaining that musicians haven't been able to play because of the pandemic restrictions. The situation is dire for the musicians in Lake Charles. Richard said he participated in a similar fundraising effort for musicians following Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans in 2005. We had musicians playing in post offices and in supermarkets, wherever there was a plug and sometimes where there wasn't, he said. We have to improvise, but the musical culture is well ingrained in humanity. People need music. They want music. We are doing the best we can to keep the music alive. He said there was a crew in place at the Acadiana Center for the Arts in Lafayette during Festival Acadiana Creole, and the opportunity was too good to be true to tape the performances. We just jumped in. Featured artists for the Facebook Live concert are Sonny Landreth, Sean Ardouin, the Jordan Thibodeau, Cedric Watson and Joey Savoie Trio, Ronnie Fruge, Yvette Landry and Richard Como, Corey Leday, Foufollet Trio, Zachary Richard, Bo Thomas, the Dudley Fruge Trio, Sam Broussard and Barry Jean Oslet, Roddy Romero, Julie Williams and Kelly Jones, and David Torkowski. Richard said the local musicians donated their time while the production and sound crew were paid with a grant from the Jazz Fest Foundation. While live stream, musical events can't replace live concerts, he said. I think that we are redefining our relationship to the audience during COVID time. We can't perform live, so we were forced to come up with solutions. We're doing the best we can to accommodate an audience and make a living, he said. City Council attorney dispute heats up. Panel leader threatened to report City Parish Council for conflict of interest. By Claire Taylor, staff writer. The power struggle between the Lafayette City Council and City Parish attorney Greg Logan over the hiring of a Baton Rouge lawyer to represent the City Council in disputes with the Lafayette Parish Mayor-President notched up Tuesday, with the council threatening to report Logan for a conflict of interest. The City Council passed a resolution Wednesday asking Logan to withdraw the city as a plaintiff in a lawsuit he filed against special legal counsel Leanne Batson. Batson was hired by the City Council in September after council members said they were not being fairly and independently represented by Logan and his assistant attorneys in conflicts with the mayor, president, and parish council over control of city tax dollars. City Council members said they believe it is a conflict of interest for Logan and assistant attorneys hired by him to represent the City Council, the Parish Council, and the Mayor-President when the three are in conflict. It's a matter of you serving two masters, City Councilwoman Nanette Cook told Logan on Tuesday. This attorney appointed by you is under you, and you control that person. We just don't feel like we're getting the representation we need at times. The resolution approved Tuesday, which is not legally binding, includes an amendment offered by Cook outlining the Louisiana Bar Association's rules of conduct regarding conflicts of interest. A second part of the amendment appears to be a warning to Logan. The amendment authorizes City Council Chairperson Pat Lewis to seek the advice and guidance of the Louisiana State Bar Association, the Louisiana Attorney Disciplinary Board, and/or the Office of Disciplinary Counsel with respect to the application and enforcement of the rules of professional conduct in the circumstances. Cook said Wednesday, the amendment gives Lewis the authority to report Logan to the Bar Association and other bodies for ethics violations. The City Council hasn't reported him yet, she said. If he pushes one more time, Cook said, we're going to report him. Logan and Frank Nooner, whose law firm represents the city and Lafayette Consolidated Government in the lawsuit, defended Logan's position before the council Tuesday, saying the home rule charter allows the city council to hire a special attorney as bond counsel or for the utility system, but not for ordinary legal representation. They allege hiring a lawyer without Logan's approval usurps his authority as city parish attorney as outlined in the home rule charter. I am duty-bound to defend the provisions of the charter, and I believe the action of hiring the special counsel is in direct contradiction to the charter, Logan said. He said it is time to let a neutral third party decide the matter in court. Sewer station to allow new residential construction by Claire Taylor, staff writer. Construction is underway on a sewer lift station that will expand sewer services to the downtown Lafayette area and the Laplace neighborhood, allowing for construction of additional apartments. Officials gathered Wednesday for a ceremonial groundbreaking as workers across 2nd Street work the site for the lift station. This type of development is key to attracting businesses to downtown, said Kevin Blanchard, executive director of the Lafayette Public Trust Financing Authority. Without sewer capacity, you have no development, said Troy Wayman, president and CEO of One Acadiana. The financing authority is initially paying the $840,000 cost of the project. Lafayette Utilities System is expected to reimburse the trust for 90% of the cost. The financing authority is providing the property for the lift station, is managing the design and construction, and is not charging a management fee. The trust is able to move more quickly than the city on projects. The Financing Authority Board approved the project in December, and it was designed, approved, permitted, funded, and publicly bid by August. The sewer lift station should be completed by March. Attracting residents to downtown Lafayette has long been a goal of the Downtown Development Authority, but as new apartments were built and planned, it became clear LUS does not have the sewer capacity in the area to accommodate the growth planned. The lift station is expected to correct that problem, providing downtown and the Laplace neighborhood with about 500 additional gallons per minute of sewer capacity. The financing authority is planning the Monroe apartments on Monroe Street in the next year, Blanchard said. The apartments will use about 10% of the new sewer capacity. This is historic for downtown Lafayette, Anita Begnaud, CEO of the Downtown Development Authority, said, adding several people are planning significant developments because of the sewer lift station. Lafayette Parish Mayor President Josh Guillory commended those involved on partnering to make the project happen quickly. This is progress, he said. This is partnership. This is what good looks like. LSU is planning on building a larger sewer facility in the future to add more capacity to older neighborhoods in Lafayette, including downtown. The lift station under construction is expected to allow development to proceed downtown until the larger sewer facility is built. Cajuns will be overflowing with motivation versus UAB. The motivation level for the UL Raging Cajuns to play at an elite level when they take on the UAB Blazers at 7 p.m. Friday at Legion Field in Birmingham will certainly be at an all-time high. For starters, the Cajuns are coming off their first loss of the season, a 30-27 home heartbreaker to Coastal Carolina. The biggest reason, however, will be the name on the back of every UL player in Friday's game, in honor of a former offensive line coach, DJ Looney, who died on August 1st after suffering a heart attack during a team workout. Every jersey will have Looney on the back as a tribute to their beloved former coach. It's not meant to be anything but an opportunity for us to recognize how he impacted the people, not only in our organization, but in his career as a coach. his relationships and friendships as a player and as a man, UL coach Billy Napier said. This guy made a significant impact. That's what it's about. I know we're all thankful and better because we knew DJ and we wanted to do something special. This game presented a little bit of a unique opportunity. In a way, the idea came by accident, and in another, it couldn't have been more purposeful. In addition to the team's great love for Looney as an individual, the former Mississippi State player is actually from Birmingham. Certainly, we'll have a big contingency of people in Birmingham with his family there, going back to his hometown, Napier said. The idea, though, came out of a conversation on another project. Later this season, Napier and said UL will unveil a new uniform with Louisiana on the nameplate of each jersey. We were talking about that, and I think that concept kind of carried over to this opportunity, Napier said. It's really a selfless thing to do for all of our players to wear his name on the back and certainly honor him with how we compete and represent him, not only on the field, but how we live our lives each day and all the things he taught us. No convincing arguments were necessary for UL players to support this idea. It means the world, junior offensive tackle Max Mitchell said. When we found out they were doing that, we were all super excited. We were absolutely geeked that we could represent that, especially being in Alabama. It just means a lot to us. It's going to be real special. Mitchell said he can only imagine how much fun this week of preparation would have been with Looney still around. I think he would be jacked, Mitchell said. I think we'd be messing with him about going back to Alabama and Birmingham. I think he'd have all the juice. I think he'd be ready to go. I think it would be just classic Looney. In so many ways, the complicated 2020 season was the exact time a coach with Looney's big personality would have shined the brightest. He was always positive, redshirt sophomore linebacker A.J. Riley said. Even on the worst days and the hard work days, he'd always inspire us and help us out, help us push through the day. He'd always get the best out of everybody, even on their worst day. That's what I loved about Coach Looney. Mitchell said Looney would have really been preaching extra focus in the first few practices after UL's loss to Coastal Carolina. Yes, he was real good about having a 24-hour rule, Mitchell said. After that Sunday, you move on. He was real good about keeping us focused on who was our next opponent. If we had a walkthrough or something for the next game, he'd be real good about keeping us on track. Coach Rob Sale does a great job with that as well. Him and Looney were real parallel with how they did things throughout the week. It's typical for any team that loses a game to devise a gesture in tribute of that coach's life and contributions to the program. In Looney's case, however, it always seemed obvious that none of the kind words or actions taken about him were out of a sense of obligation, but rather genuine emotion about a genuine friend and leader. That felt amazing, Riley said of learning the news. Everybody knows what type of impact Coach Looney had on us on the field and off the field also. He was just a great person. While some may prefer to follow the first loss of the season with one of the weaker teams on the schedule, the Cajuns relished following the setback with arguably their biggest test of the season at UAB, an attitude Looney would have appreciated. Just getting another chance to get the bad taste in our mouths from last week and able to play a good UAB team that's on a 21 home game winning streak. So what better challenge could we ask for coming off a loss, Riley said. The 31-year-old Looney was a native of Chattanooga, Tennessee, who played his high school football in Birmingham. He played offensive lineman for Mississippi State from 2007 to 2010 and was the Bulldogs tight ends coach in 2017 before joining Napier and Lafayette in 2018. I know our players are excited about it and want to go about it the right way, Napier said. It's a simple thing that we can do that I think will bring attention to a guy that lived life the right way. UL at UAB will be 7 p.m. Friday. You can watch it on CBS Sports Network or listen to it on radio KHXT FM, 107.9 KPEL AM, 107.9 KPEL and on AM at 1420. Unlikely showdown. Lafayette High, New Iberia square off in battle of 3 to 5A unbeatens by Mike Kopage, contributing writer. In 2019, Lafayette and New Iberia high schools combined to win 6 games. This season, however, the Mighty Lions and Yellow Jackets are riding high with a 3-0 records as they prepare to clash in District 3-5A contests at Lafayette High on Friday. It will be the league opener for New Iberia, while Lafayette High is 2-0 in district after defeating Como and Sulphur. It's amazing what winning does for morale, said second-year New Iberia coach Kurt Ware, whose team went 2-8 last season. After an impressive offseason in the weight room, Ware's team is noticeably bigger and stronger. New Iberia boasts 3 of the area's top rushers in Mark Linzer, Tice Fuselier, and Alvin George III. Linzer leads the team with 378 yards on 30 carries and has 9 touchdowns. He has learned how to be a running back, Ware said of Linzer, a senior. As a freshman and a sophomore, he was a receiver. Fuselier has 306 yards on 50 carries with 5 touchdowns, and George has 45 carries for 247 yards and a touchdown in the Yellow Jackets' wing tee offense. To be successful with a wing tee offense, you have to be able to run the ball, Ware said. What's good is that we're getting production from all 3 backs. Alvin had 90 yards versus Donaldsonville last week. He's much more physical than a year ago. After a year in the system, he learned where the cuts are. Tice is the only one of the 3 with running back experience. Alvin had always played defense until now. The Yellow Jackets have also sparkled on defense, particularly up front. Our defensive line is really good, Ware said. Mike Atkins and Quentin Cook are playing well. Daquan Jones is also playing well. I don't think we've given up 100 rushing yards in a game. One area Ware said needs improvement is the secondary. We have to do a better job with not giving up big plays, he said. We don't have a lot of depth at cornerback. New Iberia routed Lafayette High 42-11 last year, but Ware is wary of the Mighty Lions this time around. They're a much different football team, he said. Coach Cedric Figaro has them playing much more physical. On offense, they go with double tight ends and run tight at you. If they can do that, they're content. Last week, Lafayette High quarterback Zan Saunier rushed for 205 yards and a 28-14 win at Sulphur. Saunier is really good, Ware said, and they're physical on defense. Coach Figaro's son, Theos Figaro, was the defensive district MVP last season. He was the best player in the district. Saunier has rushed 35 times for 445 yards and 5 touchdowns. I don't know if anyone knew he was a running threat before this year, Figaro said. Zan is getting more confident, not that he was lacking confidence. We haven't been dependent on one particular thing. Our running backs have carried us at times, our defense has carried us at times, but nobody is where they want to be right now. We're still just moving forward with baby steps. In a Week 1 win over Patterson, the Mighty Lions forced 5 turnovers with linebackers Seth Jones and Oliver Craddock returning 3 interceptions for touchdowns. Oliver has a 35 on the ACT, Figaro said of the senior, who had 2 of the interception returns against Patterson. He's a brilliant student. He brings the same brilliance to defense as well. None of the guys in our secondary, Simon Jones, Chris Daracel, Kareem Valerie, and Nick Cormier, have a lot of experience, but they've played well in our first 3 games. Figaro said he knows that his defense front 7 will need a strong performance against New Iberia's ground attack. Nish runs an offense that's confusing to a defense, Figaro said. We have to play assignment football. They do a good job of hiding the football, and they're going to come down and try to smash you in the mouth. They've been doing a good job of pounding the ball. Hopefully we can slow them down. And I think that is about all the time we have for today. I'm going to take the liberty of skipping the Zodiac because we're running out of time. But thank you for tuning in to the news today, and we hope to see you tomorrow for Friday's news read.